Hello gorgeous soul friends, welcome to my channel, Madame Devaux. Thank you so much for tuning in and for allowing me into your wondrous experience today. After watching Pixar's Soul, I've been feeling extremely called to make a video on the concept of death. Now, Disney is usually pretty subtle with their inclusion of occult references, but it seems as though lately with movies like Onward and Soul, they're much more in your face with it, which is extremely reassuring. The awakening is here, and because of that, they can be more in your face with these concepts because more and more people are opening their minds to ideas like life after death, and energy and consciousness and all of that stuff. We typically have associated death with something negative because for so long we've seen death as a means to an end. We have been conditioned to believe that there is this end with our lives whenever we die. There is an end to our consciousness, there's an end to our being. But in reality, death is actually just a transmutation. It's another word for change. It's not actually an end. It literally means changing of state. Everything occurs in cyclical form. The days, weeks, years, zodiac seasons, the 4 seasons, the water cycle, even the rotation of our Earth on its axis and around our sun is cyclical. So as above, so below. We are also embodying these cycles within our own lives and within our being. And the cycle of life continues beyond this current incarnation. So energy can't be created or destroyed. It's only transferred. So if you think of consciousness as an energy form, it's simply transferred into a new state of being after death. Where it was once in the physical body, it was once in one state of being, it's transferred to a non-physical state of being, or like many people say, a soul or a ghost or whatever you want to call it. They're all just labels at the end of the day for the same thing. Now, where your consciousness goes is entirely dependent on the level of awareness that you achieved in life and your level of awareness at the point of death. And this is why people who die in very traumatic experiences tend to have a hard time crossing over, because their level of awareness at the moment of death is often a state of confusion or a state of fear, so they don't know what to do, how to let go, and how to move forward. And this is kind of like what happens in the movie Soul with Joe when he dies unexpectedly and is forced to face the afterlife. So Gigi Young has a fascinating video on the concept of death and reincarnation, and I'll list it in the description box below, along with a couple other of her videos because she is great and I highly recommend her. She's amazing. So the way that she described reincarnation in her video was like a lotus. So the more wounded and closed-minded people are the people who are in the bud state. They have a very narrow view of the world and of themselves. Whereas people who have incarnated many, many times, continue to open their awareness and open their perspective so that they can see the world in a much more vast manner than somebody who is still at the bud. So the more evolved souls are on the open part of the lotus. And this is just a continuous cycle, as a lotus flower itself is cyclical. It's, as far as we know, just this ever continuous cycle of expansion, right? That is the death process. It is just a continuous cycle of expansion. It's just a continuous cycle of change. The ancient Egyptians were actually preparing their people for death. If you've looked into the ancient Egyptian Book of the Dead, that's exactly what this book was trying to do. It had a number of spells and incantations that would assist the soul on its journey into the afterlife. They were teaching their people the proper way to die by conditioning the idea that everything is a reflection. They were also teaching their people consciousness expansion, because the more conscious you are, the more control you have over your death process. The people who are going to struggle the most with the death process are ultimately the people who don't believe in spirit at all. Those people who have no concept of a soul or no concept of the afterlife, those are going to be the people who really struggle with the death process, and they may struggle with that transition. And certain people have horrible experiences with death, while others feel it brings life. There's many different unique experiences with death, just like there's many unique experiences with everything in life. And this is entirely dependent on your relationship with yourself. So some people are completely unable to hold any sort of love within them. And that's a really key component in the death process, is being able to take in as much light as possible, being able to hold as much unconditional love as possible, and raising your vibration to maintain that sense of awareness through the transitionary phase into the non-physical. Love and light are parallels. So when you invite in more love and more light into your body and maintain it, you're pushing out anything that is low vibrational and dark and traumatic. So when you're inviting in more light into your being, you're pushing up all of these wounds and all of these things that you've been suppressing so that you can face them and let them go. A lot of people become very uncomfortable facing these emotions. So this is why people have different experiences with death. Your experience with death is going to be entirely dependent on the relationship you have with yourself and the relationship you have with love. Schools of magic teach about the concept of consciousness transfer from your physical body into your light body, or your activated Merkaba, as Jewish mysticism calls it. Essentially, your light body is supposed to assist you in keeping you from falling back into the cycle of reincarnation and allowing you to expand and move forth past the house of cards, past the illusion that has been created with the 3D Earth Matrix, and be able to go back to the infinite, wherever the hell we came from. It's commonly reported by people with near-death experiences that there is a white light which is presented to them upon the moment of death. So Disney also depicted this same white light, calling it the Great Beyond. And they even created this ominous vibe around the Great Beyond, which I think was completely intentional, because the white light after death is false light. It's a trick in order to keep your soul unconsciously cycling around, being used as a power source for beings who feed off of your misery and suffering. And yes, I did just say that. Now, just take a moment to breathe that in, because I know it's a lot. Trust me. These souls are even being transported into the Great Beyond via conveyor belt, which further insinuates the idea that they're being viewed as a commodity. They're even being tracked and counted carefully like inventory by Terry. Joe is able to escape the Great Beyond, which is hinting at this idea that you can escape the reincarnation system, and is transported to the Great Before, which is the realm that pre-birth planning takes place. Before we come down into these physical incarnations, we make a deal with a legion of beings, like the Jerrys, to be an extension of source consciousness, to come into these 3D bodies and to be our own unique expression of the creator. And if you want to know more about pre-birth planning, I do have a video talking about it on my channel. I'll list it somewhere around here so you can check it out whenever it resonates with you. But the depiction of the little souls who are in their pre-birth planning phase was excellent. They really captured the true essence of the soul, that divine childlike innocence, right? Because that's what soul energy is. When you're connecting to your higher self, you're connecting to that inner child that is within, the child that's within all of us. It was also fantastic that they included the soul patches, which contain the different personality traits and interests that the person would take on in life. So this could be attributed to the 12 zodiac archetypes that people take on in their birth charts. Now, let's discuss the Jerrys really quick, because I thought that this was very interesting that Disney decided to include this. It was actually kind of clever. In the Great Before, there are these really tall, higher vibrational beings that collectively go by the name of Jerry. And this is to capture the idea of unity consciousness and oneness. I just thought that that was so amazing. Like, these beings don't identify as separate. They're all just Jerry. Jerry explains that it is all quantized fields of the universe coming together in a way that your feeble mind can understand, which is exactly what I explained in my video talking about spirits and how they project themselves in a way that our brains can conceptualize. I also thought the height of Jerry was super interesting, considering when I've had encounters with higher vibrational beings, they've always been very tall. I think it also captures the idea that as consciousness expands, humans do get taller. So the Jerrys throughout the movie are depicted as being forever at peace, constantly blissful. I think that they're trying to depict the state of samadhi. Even when Joe is running amok, they don't appear to be angry at all. They don't appear to even be fazed. They're just constantly in this state of bliss and peace at all times. I also wanted to touch on this tiny little detail that I feel like I would have missed if I didn't study yoga. But it was so interesting. While Jerry was trying to calm the little souls down, it used the quiet coyote, or the Karana mudra, which is used to cleanse out bad energy. I just thought that was so fascinating that they they included a mudra. So the lost souls is a great concept that Disney included because it's definitely a major issue in our society today. Lost souls wander in the astral plane while their earthly selves struggle to break free of an obsession that they have. Kind of playing on the idea that people get caught up in things that aren't necessarily bad, but when it becomes an obsession and it takes over their life, they become a lost soul. In the movie, Moonwind helps guide this lost soul back to his body, a broker who's obsessed with making a trade. And when the soul jumps back into the body, he has an awakening and is like, I'm out, and like just starts like going crazy and like throwing things everywhere and destroying the office and like leaves. And I thought that this was like a dramatic representation of the spiritual awakening process, how oftentimes people will wake up and realize the job they've been working for the past 10 years doesn't resonate with them or what they want to do. I also thought it was great that they touched on the concept of astral travel, which I also have a video on if you guys want to check it out. And it was captured quite accurately with the experience of Moonwind and all of his friends meeting together in the astral realm to explore with one another. I just thought that was so awesome because that is something that you can do. You can train yourself to get really good at astral projecting along with friends and meet them in the astral realm. So Joe goes into this state of meditation and has this life review where he realizes that he's been wasting his entire life, and he has this ego death and this sense of recognition where, you know, he really wants to appreciate life more than he did before. And I think that's kind of the moment when Joe realizes that we come down to these physical incarnations simply to experience. And that's one thing that 22 had to learn when she was in Joe's body, was that life is purely experience. We're just here to learn and to perceive and to be. That's all we're here to do. There is no divine purpose, right? Even at the end of the movie, Joe says to Jerry, but what about my purpose? And Jerry says, oh, you humans and your purpose, or something like that. And you know, Jerry is entirely right. There is no, we like to kind of give ourselves this divine storyline, right? Like, oh, I'm gonna achieve this one thing and that's gonna make my life meaningful. But in reality, life is a compilation of a bunch of different meaningful experiences that you cultivate over time. So the third dimensional Earth realm is a test. Escaping the reincarnation cycle is a test. Humanity is just going through an initiation process right now. Yes, the 3D realm is heavy. We're not used to being this dense, but it's necessary. It's not bad. The third dimensional realm isn't a bad thing. I mean, we get to experience things like pizza. You know, we get to experience things like bonding with one another and being present with one another and feeling love and physical touch. You know, we get to experience all of these things that we don't get to on the non-physical realm. This is really just kind of like a playground or like a learning ground for the soul to expand its consciousness and its awareness. But everything we have been taught in this society and been conditioned to believe is actually an inversion of the truth, especially in regards to death. But that is the conclusion of this short vlog. I just wanted to touch a little bit on the movie Soul because I thought it was fantastic, guys. And I think it's so amazing that Disney is actually putting these movies out and in your face, because I think it's really gonna pave the way for others to start opening their minds. It was just a really, really great movie, and I highly recommend you watch it. This is gonna be a movie that really opens your mind and kind of helps solidify maybe some things that you've already been channeling about the afterlife. If you've watched the movie Soul already, go ahead and let me know in the comment section below what you thought about the movie, and if there's any key things that you noticed that I didn't mention in this video. But other than that, have a fantastic day, guys. Thank you so much for being present with me. Bye-bye.